ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon.
Well, welcome to the Roundtable, everybody. My name is Robert Bannon. You're listening to Some Broadway World or over here on the Broadway Podcast Network, and I'm really excited because I'm obsessed with one-person shows. I love the United Solo Festival at Theater One and Theater Row right on 42nd Street. We had some guests that are here that are just wonderful and fantastic and so talented to get up and tell a story. And we have a story. I think it's a love story. Maybe it's a love story. I mean, it's got love story in the title. And Flora Lee is here. And February 11th, she's going to be giving her 65 minutes. Flora Lee on stage. And we got the scoop for you all theater fans. Flora Lee, welcome to the round table. Come on out. Tell us all about you.
Hi, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So yes, I am bringing my solo show, Sadec 1965, A Love Story, to United Solo. I'll be performing at Theater Row on April 11. And this show is a true story. It's the story of my solo motorcycle trip across Vietnam. And during that trip, I try to unpack the family secrets and figure out the history of who my father was, and by extension, my own story.
So you traveled in 2013, a 2,000-mile motorcycle journey.
Yes, and I had never ridden a motorcycle before.
Wait.
So the show start, I am in Hanoi. I just bought a motorcycle. It's parked in front of my hotel, but for the life of me, I cannot remember how to start it. That is how the show starts. And I struggle and I figure it out and I get on my way and then I stall and I have hard times just operating the machine. But really what's behind that is I am moved by something so much bigger than just driving a motorcycle. I'm here because I find out that my father has cancer. My father was Vietnamese. He left Vietnam during the Vietnam War with a scholarship to study in Canada. He studied engineering and then got married, had 3 kids, never went back to Vietnam, but also he never, ever spoke about Vietnam. And if you see me, I have Vietnamese. I have half of all of my genetics is Vietnamese. And then I hit my midlife crisis in my early 30s, and I need to better understand where I come from. So that's what takes me to Hanoi in December of 2013.
Well, I'm just floored. Firstly, I'm fascinated by the story, and I love the story, and I love stories about family and finding out your roots and all of those things. But what amazes me about the story is that, 6 weeks on a motorcycle, traveling a country, never riding a motorcycle before. Were you scared?
Absolutely. The first night I arrived in Hanoi, I landed, went to my hotel, and then I was very jet lagged. So I woke up, it must have been 2 a.m. And Robert, I froze. I was in my dark room, in my bed thinking, what have I done? I will never be able to go on this trip, completely paralyzed by fear. And then I told myself, you just need to action is the way to get through the fear. So I started looking for motorcycle on Craigslist, found the perfect one, bought it the next morning, and within 48 hours, I was on my way.
I don't know anything about Vietnam in that way. I mean, we all know it. We've heard of Hanoi. We heard of the war. We've heard of the protests in the United States about it. We've heard about a lot of people, sadly passed away from this war, were killed in this war. Like, we know what the American side of the story, and we don't think always about the people that lived there. And maybe I'm being naive, but why did you feel the need for a motorcycle?
I think I was looking for freedom.
Okay.
At that moment in my life. When the show starts in 2013, I am a young lawyer. I work as a young lawyer in Ottawa, and I'm having a good, square corporate life. On the outside, it looks like everything is good and that I'm successful, but inside I feel so empty and I have questions and I'm searching for my purpose. So I decide to leave all of that behind and to go on this trip. And then I discovered so much about Vietnam. Another theme on the show is that I cannot speak Vietnamese. I cannot understand Vietnamese, right? I grew up in Quebec, spoke French actually growing up. And so it takes me time to discover Vietnam discover the people. It's hard to interact, but there's a slow progression in the show where, as we get towards the end, suddenly I build beautiful connections with local people. And then it will all culminate when I get to Sadec. Sadec is my father's hometown. And 1965 is the year where all of this family secrets and family drama started. And I will go back to his hometown and finally find the answers to my questions.
Well, that's why it's called Sadec 1965, everybody. It's a Sadec 1965, a love story. You can go to unitedsolo.org. There's a link below us if you want to see. Or you can go to Sadec1965.com as well, and you can get your tickets. The show, while we're talking about it, is going to be Friday, April 11th at 7 o'clock at the United Solo Festival, Theater 1 and Theater Row on 42nd Street. You can get your tickets. And the poster, everything that you've done looks just really beautiful. The show looks so beautiful. And you've put this show on and done fringe festivals and other solo festivals, literally from, I don't know, like from San Diego and Canada and all over the place. So what made you write this? If you say you're a lawyer, what made you write this into a solo show? That's a 65-minute show. That's just you.
Robert, I don't think I knew how hard it was to put a solo show because I am not a theater artist. I knew I wanted to write this story ever since I stepped off the motorcycle. But Robert, I didn't know what the medium would be. For the longest time, I would tell anybody who would listen, I'm going to write a book. I will write my memoir. I will write a book. Now, I have now so much respect for people who can actually publish a book. That is a lot of work. Then almost 10 years passed and I still hadn't written the first chapter of that book. And then I came across storytelling. Storytelling is kind of a newer medium that we see a lot more on the East Coast. A friend of mine bought tickets to a storytelling show, invited me, and I was sitting in the audience. That was 2017.
Jeez.
Completely transfixed. I was
Jeez.
like, this is what I had been looking for my whole life. The combination of performance and public speaking was really what I was looking for. So I started training in the genre, took every classes I could possibly sign up to, and eventually started performing small, short stories. 7-minute stories is how we get started in this field. But it was clear that I had a bigger story to tell. I was dying. This story was bursting at the seams. And eventually, with the help of 2 creative coaches, I was able to sit down and write my story. But it took 10 years, Robert. 10 years from the trip to the performance of Sadec. And I think what I offer to the audience is a really beautiful and mature story. Now, looking back, I know why it took 10 years, because in the show, I kind of unpack and unravel a history of a difficult relationship with my father, a lot of trauma over the years. And this is really a story about my healing journey, going back to my origins and rewriting my story and my father's story.
I love that because I know that for a lot of people, they may not relate. We may be from different places. You could be here from the US like you, but your ancestry can be from somewhere else. But we all have relationships with parents and family and internal struggles. And this story seems like it's for everybody. It's not just for people who have experienced exactly what you've experienced. I'm sure you're going to see, you must have heard a lot from people who have seen this show in the past that you've put on and how it relates to them. What's the feedback like when you walk off the stage and meet with people who just saw the story?
Oh, it's the best part of being a performer, because people will resonate with something. And because I'm there are parts in the story where I'm very vulnerable. I will talk about my own journey with addiction, with just being a troubled youth, with all sorts of personal challenges that followed from my basically growing up without a dad. And people will want to come to me and share. It's like if I give them permission suddenly to talk about, I talk about domestic violence, about sexual abuse, and suddenly because I voice and I tell my story on stage, people are given permission to kind of revisit some of those memories. And it's always a beautiful thing. I've had people come to me and just cry and hug me and walk away.
Sure. I believe that. That's the power of storytelling, everybody. And that's what you get to do up there, is that everyone can see a little piece of something that relates to their life through what you do. What was it like the first time? I know you're a lawyer, so you talking in front of people is not necessarily scary, but being on stage with lights and an audience is a whole different medium. I guess it's a lot like a courtroom, but what is it? What was it like the first time you told this and got this out out of your body and put it out into the world for the first time?
The first times were very difficult. The One of the difficulty with a solo show is really memorizing an hour of materials and being fully present in the performance for 65 minutes. Really, you have to be able to sustain that energy, and you want to be as generous as possible on stage, because people are giving you the gift of their attention.
Yes.
An hour, and I take that so seriously.
Yes.
So it has been quite the journey learning to be a performer, but I really want to plug in here the fringe scene. It is such a wonderful platform for emerging artists like me, who would otherwise have no place to take their little itty bitty piece of art that they created. Thanks to the French circuit, I was able to tour, and I toured for 2 entire summers. I've performed in over 50 cities. I've done over 90 shows in Canada and in the US. And now, 2 years later, I think I can now call myself an artist.
Well, I think you sure can. I think you were an artist the whole entire time, to be honest. And I want people to know that you've won different Fringe festivals, best production, best solo performance. You were nominated for Broadway World Awards. A lot of people have been very moved by your story. So I think you're quite the artist as well. So how did you find out about the Fringe Festival? How did you find out that this was even a thing that you could do, that there were people that would come to see you at a festival and hear your story?
I found out about Fringe festivals because of one friend. A friend of mine had created her own solo show, and she had gone on to perform at the local Fringe festival here in Washington, D.C., where I live. But now looking back, I think it was the universe whispering in my ear through that person. I applied to one Fringe festival, and then me, doing everything in my life with a spreadsheet, thought, well, maybe there are more festivals out there and more opportunity. And really, I think this story is bigger than me. Yes, it's a story based on events that happened to me, but the message, which is a journey towards healing, is much bigger than me. And I'm just so grateful that there's been such a great reception and beautiful platforms for me to perform.
I'm sure there's a community of people now that you've worked with and seen their shows, and they see your show and you work together. Do you go and see other people do their own sets? Is that something that interests you, to see what they do on their stage?
Absolutely. I'm like you. I love solo shows.
Same.
They happen along a wide spectrum, right? Some people are earlier in their journey, some people are more mature in their journey, but I just love a good personal story. It's actually a dream of mine to start my own solo festival here in Washington, D.C., but don't tell anyone.
All right, I'm not going to tell anybody, but I'm ready to help you support it when you're ready to have it up and out, for sure. I'm excited for you, and I think it's so wonderful. I think that people don't understand how hard it is, the courage it takes to stand on stage and talk about some of the hardest parts of your life. But through that is healing yourself, but also healing the audience. I don't know the end. I've not seen your show. I haven't, but is there a cathartic moment? Did you get the answers you were looking for when you started this journey?
I did. So during my travels through Vietnam, I find out about a woman named Hien. I actually I found all of the correspondence my father exchanged with this woman, Hien. She was his high school sweetheart. They met in Sadec in 1965, and they were in a relationship for 6 years and exchanged letters, handwritten in Vietnamese. And I happened to find all of their correspondence 40 years later.
Wow.
And discover about this woman that I had never heard about. And I decide during my motorcycle trip to track this woman down, because there were so many things in the letters and about her story that resonated with my story. So the end of the show is about me finding Hien, going to my father's hometown, and we will meet, and I will give her back something. I had been carrying with me something I wanted to return to her in a way to bring her closure and closure for myself. So I'm not giving you the whole story, but there's a really beautiful encounter with this woman that was both the beginning and the end of the story.
Well, you're gonna have to get a ticket to see the show, everybody. So if you want to know about what that experience was like, the tickets are like $50. You can't even see anything for $50. unitedsolo.org. You can't go to the movies for $50 practically in New York City. That's for a fact. I love how you've done it all around. And I know that you're in DC now, and I know for Canada and all the different places that have meant something to you. But what I love about your story, and when I read about the places you've been, is that it's seen and it is received, and people need it no matter where you are. So that's what has been moving to me. It reminds me a lot of like the Barack Obama book, like Dreams of My Father, like him going back after his father was gone to find answers. And I think that that's a quest and a journey that a lot of people relate to.
Absolutely. And it's not actually so much about the answers we found there. It's about doing something about it. It's about, for me, the journey was to go to Vietnam and see if I could get answers to my questions, because I knew those answers would never come from my father. And now, instead of telling myself, oh, I had a difficult relationship with my father, now I have a better story that I'm telling myself. You know what? I had a difficult relationship with my father, but I went on this incredible motorcycle trip. I saw the whole country, reconnected with family down there, and I turned this into a show. And now I've been, performing across Canada and the US. So I was able to change my story to something that is more constructive, but that is because I took action. I did something about it. I bought myself a round trip ticket to Hanoi in December of 2013, having never traveled alone, never been to Asia, not speaking Vietnamese, and having never ridden a motorcycle. But those were not real obstacles, because I really wanted to go on this trip.
What did you learn about the culture in Vietnam, and any misconceptions, or what did you learn about their beautiful country, the way that they are as people? Was it different than you expected?
It was absolutely beautiful. The north is incredibly beautiful, very hard to get to. Most people don't go north of Hanoi, but the picturesque pictures of rice paddy fields and terraces, that's north of Vietnam. And I rode my motorcycle in there. It was really, really remote. There's a part in the show where I break down in the mountains up there, and I literally don't know how I'm going to get myself out of trouble. There was just nobody there, and I was, hours away from a village. But really, the north is absolutely beautiful. The other thing that you discover about Vietnam is we talk about it as one country, but there are so many different regions, subcultures, different cuisine, depending on whether you're in the north, the center, the south, different dialects. So it was all of this diversity that really hit me. A lot of the Vietnamese that we have here in the US come from the south. So it was different for me to see and discover the north and the central region of Vietnam.
Wow, what a fascinating story. I can't wait for you to do this show. You got to make a documentary, a movie, something about this as well, because just the fact that you decide to buy a plane ticket, go to Vietnam, get on a motorcycle where you've never ridden a motorcycle, and be in a place that you don't even speak the language, and be brave enough to just go for it, and spend this month and a half literally doing this, and then turn this into this piece is pretty amazing and fantastic. It's a lesson for all of us to, I think, sometimes take a step out of our comfort zone to go do things that we were afraid or would never thought we would be able to do. And really it seems like a defining moment in your life.
Absolutely. It has allowed me to become who I wanted to become. Sometimes not having clarity on our own story, or just having a story about ourselves that doesn't serve us well, is really what's limiting us in this life. The fact that I can stand on a stage, speak my voice, and tell my story is incredibly freeing and liberating. And I really encourage more people to do that. Now, throughout the tour, I've had a lot of audience members come and talk to me and say, I want to do what you're doing. And I have now coached and mentored a lot of beautiful emerging other storytellers. And I just want to see more stories. Hopefully, I will soon start my own festivals and classes. There's so much beauty in turning your pain into a little piece of art.
Yeah. In acting school, they taught us break your heart and make it art. So literally take your story and create something beautiful out of it. And that's what you did. Do you still ride? Do you still have a motorcycle?
Not in the US. You have to understand, in Vietnam, the motorcycles, the engines are very small. So this was a 150cc. It's barely a scooter. Because roads are not meant for fast traffic. At the time, where I was, there were no highways. You're just on this little rural roads, and they're like water buffaloes and chickens and cows and people and bicycles. I mean, you're not going fast. I was
Oh,
at the fastest I was going at 30 miles an hour. So
okay.
you can't, you can't really kill yourself. I mean, on a motorcycle in Vietnam. Now here in the US, it's much different. It's a little bit more of a dangerous sport. So no, I don't ride here stateside, but I still rent a motorcycle every time I visit Vietnam.
There you go. Well, everybody, that's why I love that. Everybody that's watching, make sure that you all get your tickets. Go see the show, unitedsolo.org. The link will be below us. And Flora, you're a pleasure, and you really inspired me today. Just thinking about it without even seeing the show yet. I can't wait for you to literally tour and make this a moment and be everywhere. And I hope it continues to travel, and I hope it continue to inspire people and teach people to have their own story that they need to tell, even if it's a couple minutes, even if anyone's told you you're a good storyteller at a dinner party or at a birthday party or something, maybe you have a story to tell, and you could be out on tour and on the road as well.
Thank you so much, Robert.
Can we follow you personally? How can we stay in touch with what's going on with the show? We could go to the website.
Absolutely. Sadec1965.com for more information about the show and tour and show dates. You can also find me on the socials at Sadec1965 on Facebook and Instagram.
I'm following right now. I'm going to follow right now. So I'm excited for it. Thank you for being here. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Robert. It was a pleasure to be here.